This game is an abysmal failure. Ubisoft is going under, and I predicted this.
Renegade Online.
But talking about this, let's see how far Disney has fallen down the well. Ubisoft, who is the game manufacturer that has produced Star Wars Outlaws for Disney Lucasfilm. This game is an abysmal failure. And I mean badly abysmal failure. I lost a slide I had earlier because I had to reset the computer before the show. I'm going to try to pull it up here. If Pro, you can find it real quick. Black Myth Wukong, which is a massively popular AAA game that came out at the same time, literally the same week, by my recollection.
And what are you wanting on Black Myth Wukong pulled up?
Black Myth Wukong right now, as of like several days ago, had already sold 18 million copies of the game. Almost as much as Harry Potter did in the first month. In the first 2 weeks of release, Black Myth Wukong, 18 million copies have sold of that game. That is the game right now. You've seen us pull up the stats before with Twitch. We had 60-some-odd thousand people live watching on Twitch Black Myth Wukong at the same time. Less than 4,000 or right about 4,000 were watching people play Star Wars Outlaws. And the number one person that was streaming Star Wars Outlaws had 700 people watching, and she was a pretty hot-looking chick with some tig old bitties hanging out in the camera. All right? I'm just saying. So I think we know why most of the audience was there watching her. Black Myth Wukong here. Cumulative worldwide units sold. We're at 18 million right now as of September 5th. Bro, that's almost a week ago. Where do you think
it's got to be
now?
at 20 by now? It's over 20 million.
It's over. It's probably approaching 25 million units sold.
I bet Ubisoft would love to own that game.
I bet Ubisoft would love to own that game too. Here's the deal. Let's go back to this real quick. Ubisoft shares slump after investor urges Assassin's Creed maker to go private. I am going to have a little I told you so party right now. I was talking to Jonas this morning, bro, and I told him this is one of the things we were going into tonight on the live show. And I said that this is what's going to happen. And I said this, I think, a week ago, 2 weeks ago. It was on one of the previous, I think it was the live show, the last live show that Endymion and I did together, which might have been Wednesday last week. I don't remember. But during that show, when Endymion was on, I brought up the fact that this is what I think is going to happen based on what I'm seeing, because I was explaining to him the history of the Ubisoft stock price 4 years ago versus today.
It's going great.
It's going awesome. I'm going to pull it up in a second. You guys are going to have your hair blown back.
They're a trailblazer for Disney. I mean, Iger is taking notes on how to do this.
Yeah. It's been an absolute disaster. And I said, with where Ubisoft is going, and with all the tea leaves that are being read right now by Wall Street, my people on Wall Street, people like at Barclays Bank, people at JP Morgan Chase, these analysts out there, they have radically slashed back their forecasts. And that was, honestly, like within the first day or two of Outlaws coming out. It's going to get even worse. Outlaws right now, I don't know. We don't have any figures yet, but based on the Wall Street analyst projection of what Ubisoft will have sold of Star Wars Outlaws by March of next year, by the end of March, 6 months from now, I'm betting that Star Wars Outlaws today, September 11th, 2024, has probably maybe not even broken 2.5 million units. And right now, as you had up a minute ago, Black Myth Wukong, that came out on this almost the same day, is probably at close to right now 25 million units. Literally 10 times the number of copies sold as Star Wars Outlaws. And what this has done, Ubisoft is going under, and I predicted this. And when I talked about this with Endymion a week or so ago, what I suggested to him is that we're approaching a bankruptcy thing or a buyout situation, right? And it looks like the buyout situation is coming into play. So what we have here is one of the investors, and not even a major investor. This investor has, I think, less than 1% of all outstanding Ubisoft shares, is already suggesting that the Guillemot family, Yves Guillemot is the CEO of Ubisoft. The Guillemot family still owns about 13% of Ubisoft. The largest family or the largest shareholder in terms of like an what we would call here in the U.S. as an FLP, a family limited partnership in a trust sense. But Yves Guillemot and the Guillemot family still own about 13% of Ubisoft. They're already being peppered, or should I say barraged, with suggestions from other institutional investors out there that Ubisoft needs to be taken private and private equity firms need to come in and take this over.
You really got to congratulate Kathleen Kennedy. I mean, the woman knows how to destroy any industry. I mean,
everything
this is incredible.
that bitch touches. I mean, it's like, it's the reverse Midas touch.
She probably weeps when she walks by closed arcades in the mall because she wishes she'd got in on destroying those before they went kaputs.
Yeah, I mean, this is a spectacular fail. And again, the article, I've basically given you everything in this article here. They've already delayed major game releases like the next Rainbow Six, Division Resurgence. All of those are being pushed into next fiscal year.
I'm hearing Valiant. It's not limited to Ubisoft.
I don't think Ubisoft is going to make it that far.
Grand Theft Auto, I am hearing that
GTA,
GTA is freaking out right now. Game's been in development for rounded up to a decade. It's not quite there, but they might have to push the next GTA back another year or two to start wiping out some of the woke because they're terrified now.
That's just it. The woke is what's killing this, and this is the point. The woke, quote unquote, the woke, is what has murdered this stuff. Because like we've talked about before, like I've talked about with other folks that have been on the show, and I will say this again, because everybody needs to listen to this, and they need to understand this. It's very simple. The Walt Disney Company, the same company that engineered a debate sabotage of Donald Trump last night in a presidential debate on national television, the same company that destroyed Marvel in phases 4 and 5, the same company that has destroyed Star Wars since day one, is the same company that is now destroying another partner out there. Like the Walt Disney Company has put an enormous amount of downward negative pressure on Hasbro because of the fact they broke Marvel and they broke Star Wars, and Hasbro's on the hook for billions of dollars in licensing fees for these toys that they can't sell, like Captain Marvel, right? Like Ms. Marvel and all this other trash that they had to spend a ton of money to produce. Same thing with new Star Wars, all the money they lost with Rose Tico dolls and everything, Reva stuff and all this crap. People don't want it, right? That's how woke breaks people. Ubisoft went down this road with this game as well, because the Walt Disney Company once again decided that we can't have male heroes of the past that built the fandom, that built the fan base, right? The Walt Disney Company paid $4 billion for Star Wars, by and large. I realize, again, like I've said before, other things came with the package, like Willow and Indiana Jones, and the real money machines at the time were, of course, ILM and Skywalker Sound. But Disney essentially paid $4 billion, really, for Star Wars. They paid $4 billion for Darth Vader, for Luke Skywalker, for Han Solo, for Princess Leia. They have given us, since then, bupkis in that regard. They broke Han Solo, they broke Luke Skywalker, and now we're getting a video game that has a cheap dime store Walmart brand gender-swapped female ripoff crap version of Han Solo. Remember, Disney paid $4 billion to get Han Solo. And once again, they're giving us knockoff brand. The Walt Disney Company paid $4 billion to get Tatooine, to get Hoth, to get Endor. What did they give us in Galaxy's Edge? Batuu. We still don't know what the hell Batuu is. This is the stupidest, biggest waste of shareholder capital I've ever seen. And this is what it's done to Ubisoft. Let's take a look. Down another 10% today. This is a stock. Ubisoft. Look at the market cap. That hadn't even caught up. The market cap now, if we adjust it again, is probably down around to about $1.4 billion. And as I continue to remind folks, this game company, a major AAA game company, Microsoft paid $60 to $70 billion to acquire Activision Blizzard. Microsoft paid as much for Activision Blizzard, StarCraft, Diablo, stuff like that, as the Walt Disney Company paid to get Fox. Fox. Look at Ubisoft. Ubisoft is 1/60th the price of what Activision Blizzard was. And let me show you what it was a few years ago. January of 2021, $82 a share. It is now worth $12. This is not the result of a 10-for-1 split or an 8-for-1 split. This is the result of woke. This is the result of also, and it needs to be noted, again, to be fair, Ubisoft has not really invested in updating their game engines. Their games are just not what they used to be. And I think a lot of that, and this is where the woke side, quote-unquote woke side, comes in, is that Ubisoft, like many other Hollywood studios, television and film, and, in this case, game development studios, have succumbed to the DEI ideology, where they're just hiring people to fill a void because they can say, oh, we now have 30% of our game developers and our game writers and all this kind of stuff are women. Sweet. Are they any good?
Well, it's even worse. They actually have contempt for their
maybe.
consumers.
Right, and that's just it. But you look at this right now, and Ubisoft is, this is the thing. And going back to the article here that I had up previously, let me pull that back up, because the whole point of this and the reason why that this is here. Ubisoft shares slump after investor urges Assassin's Creed maker to go private. The reason why Assassin's Creed and not Star Wars Outlaws is headlined in this is because here's the hint. And this is from the Wall Street Journal, by the way. I forgot to mention. This is a Wall Street Journal article. This isn't Game Rant. This isn't IGN. This is the WSJ. All right? I told y'all this was coming.
Almost as good as that Park Place.
Here it is. Exactly. Almost as good as that Park Place. Because Assassin's Creed Shadows, like you see on the screen, this is the next big failure for Ubisoft that's coming in 2 months. Barclays analyst said last week, we covered this, and I sent this to my boys out there. I sent it to Craig at Side Scrollers and to Endymion and Grums and Dread Roberts and all these great people out there. And I said, listen, here's the article. And Endymion hadn't seen that article when he was on the show. And I said, look, they're talking about the fact that Assassin's Creed Shadows is going to have to sell at least 13.5 million copies of the game in order to make up for the losses of Star Wars Outlaws, based on what Ubisoft had reiterated in their guidance for full year revenues. Meaning that in the last earnings call, Ubisoft said, we're still on target. We still think that we're going to make the money in this fiscal year ending in March that we projected. So Wall Street made a very simple calculation. Based on the fact that Star Wars Outlaws is performing like trash, like hot trash, that means that based on what Ubisoft said, they're expecting that Assassin's Creed Shadows is going to sell 13.5 million units. The problem with that is that's about 500,000 more units, according to Endemian's recollection, than what one of the most popular Assassin's Creed games of all time sold. Good luck. Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.